Welcome, everybody, to Recruit, Hire, Lead to Retain. I am your host, Deborah Reynolds, owner of About Face Image Consulting, business and leadership coach, image and mindset transformation expert. My co host is recruiting and hiring expert and owner of Best Culture Solutions, Tim Dick. Welcome, Tim.
Hey, we're back. How are you?
Oh, excellent. Good. We got a good topic today because this is a really important one, which is
Yeah.
all around mental fitness, mindset,
hmm
and how that actually helps when you are looking to get hired and with the retention within a company.
Yeah, and I what I'm thinking here too, and you're kind of this is your wheelhouse, Deb, right? So I wanted to spend today getting into this with you and understanding this. I think I understand a little bit of it, but I'd like to get to know more. But you know, the question I have is what role does mindset play in helping leaders retain people, or even hire the right people for that matter? How can mindset play a role in recruiting and retention?
That's such a great question, Tim. And so, my philosophy is, and many people have heard the phrase, mindset is everything. So, when we're
Mm,
looking at the aspects of business and really the success of how a business runs, I think it falls under sort of four basic parameters, which essentially is number one is mindset. Number
yep.
two is making sure the business foundation is really in place. And that includes a lot of the systems and standard operating procedures, processes, how those things would really work. That's team as well and how they collaborate, work together. And then the other pieces are the marketing components, the messaging within, the messaging without, so that the marketplace is being well informed about the products and services and how things work, and the communication dialogue there and the nurturing, and then the sales component. So under those umbrellas, mindset fits into everything, including the right thinking processes. So, where we run into a lot of problems is when a person is not leveraging their mind well, we are
hmm
really subject to a lot of stress and a lot of overwhelm. Because let's face it, if you are working in a larger company, there's a lot going on in terms of the dynamics. There's a lot of people that were working within the company, especially even if you're middle manager, you are managing up, you're managing down. So, because of those dynamics, you have to know a lot of things. Business is very complex. And what happens is you have to get to know people. You have to
Yep.
be able to get along with a wide variety of personalities at any given time in the process, but you've got to be highly productive in how you do things. The mindset comes into play with really being creative and leveraging your mind to be highly productive without being stressed. That's important.
That's right. And so, I mean, when we opened this conversation today, what I didn't expect to hear was there's a few terms I didn't expect to hear. They're like processes and SOPs. What I expected here is a lot about how to take care of your mind and how that can help you be present with people. And but tell us a little bit about that. So how, when you think about that and you do tie it together, the things like SOPs and processes and different efforts and things that happen in your business, expand on that. How does that tie to mindset, and what does that do for your ability to hire and retain properly?
Okay. So
Yeah.
we have different regions of the brain. So the one part of the brain, I mean, there's different parts that we need to be able to access to think through the issues and problems and challenges in a workplace environment. We need
Yeah.
to be able to think logically and clearly. We need to access the prefrontal cortex of the brain where planning, logic, organizing, innovation, navigation, all these things are happening, because that's a daily process when we're planning, as well as planning long term for a business. So we also need to be able to access that part of the brain that is very highly creative. And
Mm.
so what happens is when we're under a great deal of stress and we have the body flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, it actually, that chemical influx into the bloodstream and into the brain acts like a huge door that slams shut and not allowing you to access the prefrontal cortex of the brain to do that very complex thinking. And so it's the creative thinking, the strategic thinking, the analytical thinking, the critical thinking that becomes really important. But being able to do it without fatiguing the brain and fatiguing the body, because when you're doing a lot of thinking and processing and utilizing the brain, the body gets exhausted. The brain
Right.
requires a lot of energy to be able to process and work through. So, I mean, people have probably heard of brain fog, right? So
Yeah.
that is a thing that can be difficult, even when, you know, when we're talking about COVID and the pandemic and even flu season now coming around, is people get ill and then they have this sense of brain fog that things aren't functioning well. And when you have this influx of adrenaline and cortisol, a little bit of it is good for the brain. What happens is with stress, there's too much that is influxed into the bloodstream. And so now the brain does not function well. And it's about
Right.
how the brain is wired and how we rewire the brain so that we can think effectively, but also we can be more creative without the stress component, without the chaos, without the overwhelm, where the brain starts to shut down, where we're not able to access any of those important features of the brain.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that is a lot of times you hear people, they quit jobs not because of anything other than, say, their boss, right, or their leader. How does that spill over into that concept, right? How does that cause leaders to show up in a way where people don't want to work with them anymore?
Yeah, so number one, if you're able to access the right regions of the brain and you're developing your mental fitness, we actually have seen through studies gray matter increasing in what's known as the sage part of the brain. With that comes greater happiness. And so we actually see in the limbic part of the brain, the older part of the brain, where the survival mode, fear, all the negative emotions reside, the gray matter begins to atrophy. So if people are happier, the boss is happier, there's
Yeah.
greater empathy that is created within the brain, and that allows you to have more beneficial conversations with people as we're navigating. The other thing is we become way more tolerant about what's going on around us with the empathy and the greater understanding, is we no longer become as triggered, as quickly triggered
Mm.
when somebody says something, critiques us, we become offended. Those things don't happen as frequently. So what happens is you're actually hearing what the other person is saying, and you can actually navigate through the conversation without that elevated stress of, I can't believe they just said that. And then we blow up with all these negative inner dialogues happening that prevents us from building the relationship with other people. In fact, what it does is it creates more conflict. So we want to avoid that. So by
Yeah.
leveraging the brain, developing the fitness of the brain, we actually have greater collaboration with others, and it's done with more ease and flow. And therefore, we have significantly less conflict. And that is huge for any corporation.
Yeah, you know, one thing I can think of too off the top of my head here is that, you know, nowadays you hear a lot of words about equality or equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I think what's happened is that a lot of people they've actually got it wrong. They do a lot for diversity, which is really important, but all they really end up getting is a photo op. And what I think is really important with that is that, you know, you can't do the equity and diversity piece without having true inclusion. And
Mhm.
true inclusion in the workplace is having the security, presence of mind, and the mindfulness to allow the people that you work with to be included in the decision making process, right? To actually have a say on where do you go next, how do you do it, to be able to have ideas that contribute to the business. And I wonder if you know, if your mental fitness isn't where it needs to be, it probably reduces your ability to collaborate in that way as a leader, which can probably then in turn reduce your ability to retain people, right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, think of it this way too, from a very simple concept is, if we don't have that inclusion and we are not allowing people to be heard or to offer up their ideas in the
Yeah.
workplace, there are people in the organization that probably have a fear of not allowing that kind of dialogue to take place. When you improve the mental fitness, the fear is put aside. And
Yeah.
what happens is now is people are more receptive to have the dialogue and to take and incorporate all the fabulous brilliance and genius and ideas from team members around them. that makes for faster, smarter growth within the workplace environment.
That's right. And I think too that that increases your ability to retain people as well, right? Because
Yes.
people feel included and um, they take ownership, right, for your outcomes and your results. And yet I find that so few leaders are actually comfortable with relinquishing that level of control, and that also might be a little bit of a telltale sign as to how many leaders are focusing on their mental fitness, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, really, the very best leaders in business or in life, essentially, are 100% committed to their growth and development and to the growth and development of people around them. But they're also 100% responsible for what is being said or done and what they say and do. And so that 100% responsibility and commitment only comes with a well developed mind and making sure that we're managing our emotions really, really well, that we have our emotions under control, that we
Yeah.
recognize immediately that inner dialogue in our head, that inner dialogue is either saying, oh, he's stupid or she's stupid, they don't have anything of value to offer, to go, okay, wait a minute, that's not true. They are well experienced in what they do. They probably have some great insights and ideas. I'm going to allow them the opportunity to share so that we can all learn from the process. So it is a very big part of companies retaining. People want to be heard, they want to be noticed, they want to be known, they want to be recognized for the value and the contributions that they give, and they want to be acknowledged and remembered
Yeah.
when successes or even when failures take place. So, I mean, the failure is not that we need to punish people, but simply it's a different perspective. Now, with the brain well developed, we now have a different perspective on failure and mistakes. We're essentially looking at them as opportunities for refining a process and learning from what did not work, what went wrong. So to clean things up. So we now have a completely different perspective that keeps people in motion, that keeps people highly productive and still continuing to add great value to an organization instead of taking away or diminishing people because they aren't doing things in the right way that management thinks that they should be done.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. And I don't know about you, but I personally have found anytime that you allow team members that you lead into the decision making process to set goals for the team themselves, to have a say in what happens next, it makes a lot of leaders nervous because at first, what's funny I find is that at first they're nervous to allow them to like here's a great example. I should give a little bit more context. I am a big fan of including team members in the decision making process as to our goal setting for the year, what we want our metrics to be, or if we're measuring something, what we want our goal to be towards what we're measuring. It makes a lot of leaders I know pretty nervous, actually. And at first they're nervous because they mistakenly think, well, these people don't care as much as I do, so they're going to set a goal that's really way too low, right? And then what ends up happening is that they actually do the opposite. They set a goal that actually scares them because they think it's too ambitious and there's no way they're going to hit it. And then they end up hitting it a lot of times. So I find a lot of times when you allow people to have, be truly included in the decision-making process, you actually end up exceeding your expectations. The other thing I've also seen too, like I've been in organizations that need to find ways to cut costs, right? And there's a lot of hesitance and trepidation to allowing people to have a say in how to do that. But I've always just opened it up and said, you know what, anybody who can find a way to trim costs that doesn't affect our end product, please share it with us, right? It doesn't affect our ability to serve our customers or the customer experience, then let's hear about it. And you'd be surprised at how much comes in that is really useful and good. But I think that what ends up happening is that a lot of leaders are afraid to do that. They're scared to relinquish control. We have two types of leaders that are scared to do that. There's the ones that don't want to do it because they are absolute control freaks and they just want to be in control all the time. You have other people that want to be in control, not because they want to be all the time, it's because they're afraid of that the other people won't be able to live up to it, right? Or care as much or deliver as much. They're afraid that things will fall apart if they don't keep their thumb on things. And I don't know, like the more that we're talking about this today, the more I realize that mental fitness plays a big part in either making or not making those mistakes.
I 100% agree. And really what you're talking about too is giving people an opportunity to have what's known as inspired action.
Yeah.
So that becomes really important in a growth of a company, is people are not coming in just to do a day-to-day labor. You may find the odd staff member doing that, going, I
Yep.
don't want to be promoted, I don't want to go anywhere. But we're naturally wired for growth as human beings. That's our innate nature, is to want to grow and to develop and to add some form of contribution. And so again, when, as you were suggesting, the idea of approaching the staff to say, what ideas do you have for cutting costs? People want to retain their jobs. And if there's anything at risk there of them possibly losing their job and their livelihood or income, they're going to come up with some pretty amazing ideas. So
That's right.
and they're hands-on. That's the other thing, is we forget, because managers tend to be somewhat removed, whereas the individuals working within units, divisions, departments are hands-on. They see what's happening, but they often see the waste. And so you want their input, because this is a collaborative effort, and people are also, we have what's known as sort of a domino effect that happens when you add in great ideas and you're soliciting great ideas from people within an organization. It creates a domino effect where people want to contribute more and more and more and more. And so that exponentially helps the company grow. And it's really honoring the people that are within the organization. They're there to support you. We forget that the business owner has the dream of the company. It's all the people on the team that are making that happen. And
Exactly.
you got to step back and allow them to do that, because the majority of them will want the company to succeed, especially if they get the recognition and the accolades for it.
So here's a good question for you. I bet you a lot of people would be listening to this and saying, yeah, this all makes sense. And we should have good mental fitness and work on the mental fitness piece of things. But they just don't know where to start.
Right.
So where do they start?
Beautiful question. Okay, thank you. So I have a program called the Mastering Mental Fitness Program, and it's an intensive program for 6 weeks. We essentially make it an 8-week process, because we're basically setting goals initially. What do you want to achieve within this 2-month frame of time to be able to develop the brain? And so it's a very specific process that we take people through, that is all supported by an app on the phone, that is also supported by an app that could be used for a desktop version as well if they wish. The two are sync, they work simultaneously. So the beautiful thing is, it's a series of exercises that work progressively on developing the brain, that take anywhere from 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 15 minutes. And listen, there's going to be people out there going, I don't have time for this, I'm way too busy. That is the exact reason why you want to do this, because if you're excessively busy and you have lots of chaos going around you, you want to be able to use that as the testing ground to leverage the activities and the exercises that are built into this program, because they will work. This is a proven system that actually works. And within the 6 to 8 week period is when we see the actual growth of gray matter on the sage part of the brain, and the reduction of the gray matter in the brain through MRI imaging in the lower limbic system part of the brain, which is the older survival part of the brain. So this approach is simply, it's a really easy program. It's a program that you do everything online, everything works online. It's supported with coaching, live coaching and group coaching, to be able to support teams. And the beautiful part of this is the teams get to set the goals. And it could be a combination of personal goals. It could be a combination of team-related goals for the growth of the company or that particular division or a project. And so the team works collectively together, but then they work individually. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, there's some messy, ugly things that come up when you're working through this process, because you are overcoming how the brain has previously been wired, and the majority of our brains are wired for negativity.
Yeah.
So in that process, there's going to be a little bit of a fight. It's like, the process of getting over a habit. The point is it's done in beautiful bite-sized pieces so that you naturally build the process, and it's all fully supported in helping people get to the level that they want to get to.
Hmm. Yeah, and I can speak from experience, like on the power of that, because I've worked on that together with you. And it's no coincidence that when we were working on mental fitness, that our business fortunes really kind of took off, and we just got busier and busier and busier. And here we are today. And, and it probably doesn't hurt that, we're trying to help solve a problem that a lot of people have when we're recruiting and helping with people strategy advice on retention. But at the same time, like, we didn't have the press that really helped us improve in the presence of mind to be able to do that and to help people with that. It made a huge difference for us. And actually, I'm somebody who, this wasn't the first time I'd worked on mental fitness or taken on improving in that area. And I mean, the road to mental fitness has no finish line, I would say. And it made a huge difference for us in just how busy we got and how many people were trusting us to help solve their problems for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, you are the classic example of somebody that's taken the program and implemented it and had phenomenal results with it. And the one thing I want to say is this program is all built around how people self-sabotage. And why this is so important in the recruiting and hiring and retention component of business is that people who have lost their jobs, that are wanting to reinvent themselves and to build up their confidence, their self-esteem, their wealth, their worthiness, their deserving, knowing that they are enough, that they know enough. This is critically important, because too many people can go into an interview situation, even though they are trained and groomed and the resume is looking good, but they can inadvertently self-sabotage in the process. And so the key here is to develop the mental fitness so that people have that authentic confidence, not arrogance, authentic confidence, to be able to know I have value and worth, and this is how I'm going to express it, and to share that in the right message in the right way when they're engaging with the recruiter in the interview.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, and I'm a big believer too, that every interaction um, matters, right, in some way. And having that mental fitness probably is a huge help, no matter what the interaction is, be it an interview, be it as a leader, be it otherwise. And it probably makes a huge difference for everybody.
It's massive. And, listen, we're getting close to the Christmas season. There
Mm.
is no question that when people have challenges at work, they take it at home. When they have challenges at home, they take it into the workplace environment. This is something, when they develop their mental fitness and their mindset component and they up level that, we're talking about personal growth on a very, very high, very specific level. But this has such a beautiful impact on people's relationships in the home environment as well, where things can be challenging at times. So not only is it benefiting the workplace environment, but the home environment. The whole human being is benefited. And this makes it such an attractive program that everything else in terms of business will naturally fall into place, because we're talking also about emotional intelligence, which has 18 core competencies to develop. And our audience is very familiar with emotional intelligence. It's been around a long time. But this program will naturally develop those core competencies within emotional intelligence by simply moving through the exercises and doing it. And anytime they're doing anything complex projects, even going through the interview situation itself, which is stressful, doing a 5-minute or a 12-minute mental fitness exercise before going into the interview helps the person to be calm and relaxed. So the whole dialogue, the whole conversation is more in harmony, more ease, more flow. instead of feeling the stress of it, it's all done with ease.
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely does make it easier. One thing that I'd like to latch onto there for a second is that we mentioned about the mind's ability to sabotage and stuff like that. And one thing that I would note is that, a lot of that is triggered by that survival mentality, right? Where a lot of people are just trying to survive. And, there's a good reason why our minds go to that. Centuries ago, we had to, we had to just try to survive, and we didn't have a choice. But now, we don't have to live that way anymore. And it's not the worst thing either. It can be a good motivator. That feeling isn't the worst. But what I would say is that where mastering your mental fitness can really come or really be helpful is that it can take you from being crippled by those types of feelings and emotions, um, to being able to constructively use them, right, and not to linger on them, and to understand what they mean properly, and then put something into action, right, that helps you address what is causing that feeling and ultimately improve yourself.
Yeah, the beautiful thing is that people sometimes get stuck in the growth, the development, but they're not actually implementing and being highly productive. This allows you to step forward with real ease to take the next step that you need to take in the position, in the growth of the company. So, beautiful program for leaders in an organization that want to grow and scale, but really develop their team so that everybody is like-minded in their thinking and their development. There's great collaboration and cooperation, and there's less of the push pull component of it. It's just a nice ease and
It
flow.
just is. Yeah. So, Deb, as we wind down here, how do people start with you if they want to either start on the road to mental fitness or continue on the road to mental fitness? How do they get
Beautiful.
a hold
Thank
of
you
you
for
to do
asking
that?
that. Beautiful. So I'm going to be putting in the chat in LinkedIn for people to connect with me by email if they wish to do that. And the email address is Deborah at aboutfaceimage.com. That's DEBORAH at aboutfaceimage.com. And I will also be putting a link to the mental fitness program right into the chat as well, so that they can click on the program, read all about the benefits and how it's going to serve them and support them. And it makes it really easy for them to sign up, and they can connect with me too. If they have a group going through, we can give them a very good package to be able to support their entire team.
Yeah, and I can't recommend it enough because I know that I've done it, and it made a huge difference for me and our we saw the results. So it definitely works, and more importantly than the business results, just the presence of mind to be with my family. As you know, I've got two little girls, and so our interactions have improved. That, not that they were ever bad, but just because something's not bad doesn't mean you don't want to make it better, right? And now it's even better than even it was before. Just the interactions that we have, so it makes a difference everywhere.
I mean, it does make a difference because we think we actually spend a lot of our time thinking about past thoughts, memories, and thinking
Hmm.
about the future. And it's tough to stay very, very present and focused. But this is where life happens, is in the moment. And the more that you can train your brain to be in the moment, this is where happiness is.
Exactly. Yeah. So very true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So very true. Well,
Good.
anyway, I feel more mentally fit just by spending time here today. So, I mean, I hope that our viewers have felt the same. But thanks for this, and thanks for the insight on mental fitness and how it can help people solve that difficult problem, probably the most difficult problem that people have today, right, around recruiting and retention of good people.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you. And to our audience, thank you for joining us on another great session of Recruit, Hire, Lead to Retain. I'm Deborah Reynolds, my co host, Tim Zick. We look forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn. We wish you all the best. Have a great day.
See everybody.